This is a D6 generation pip. Yeah, one of those dots on the side of a six-sided die. Yeah, a pip. You know, a short pip. Little something. Yeah, about anything gaming related. Sometimes featuring Craig, sometimes featuring Russ. We'll see what's coming up today.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the D6 Generation. I am solo today in the doubly truly mobile D6G recording studio. So what I'm doing here today, I'm trying a new experiment. I'm going to see if it's possible to actually record episodes whilst driving. So today, I'm being completely safe. I am driving my vehicle with both hands on the wheel, using the hands-free mode, recording on my iPhone using the vehicle's microphone system for hands-free calling. So I have no idea how good the audio quality is going to be. My guess is it's better than on a phone call because we're not actually doing live voice transmission. It's just recording it all locally here on the phone. But it is using the microphone array in the car. I don't know how much road noise there's going to be. If you hear a semi zip by me honking, that's probably because I cut somebody off. But in any case, hopefully this sounds pretty good. If it works out well, the exciting thing about this is I can make a lot more content because I can do it while I'm commuting. And I do have some nice clip-on lavalier mics I can upgrade to, which might give us better audio quality once I figure all that out. But I thought I'd try this out for today, and you guys let me know if this is bearable or not. So today what I wanted to talk about was actually gaming while camping. I get to talk about this because Craig's not here today. Craig and I had a crazy schedule this May, some sicknesses, some crazy travel. He had a bunch of school events. Long story short, we're doing separate bits. So he's got a segment coming out. I got a segment coming out. But we're trying to get you guys a couple segments this month as well and get some good content. But since he's not here, I thought I'd talk about camping while gaming because this is something that I do, but Craig really doesn't because he's not doesn't camp that often. So let me give you a backstory about my camping so it'll give you context about how gaming fits into it. So as most of you I may have heard on the show, long-time listeners, I do go camping pretty often. I'm not a hardcore camper, meaning, when I say hardcore, I'm talking about people that get their entire kit in their backpack. They go for a hike for days on end, like on the Appalachian Trail or someplace. They're camping overnight, and basically all they've got is a tent, a sleeping bag, and if they're very lucky, some form of pillow if they're not sleeping on their clothing. That's not me. That's hardcore. Mad respect. I'd love to do that someday. Never done that. What I do normally is I go to campgrounds, which are places where you can rent a site relatively cheaply. And at campgrounds, there's sites for either RVs, there's sites for tents, and at some campgrounds, there's even little cabins. Now, normally, what my family has done when we go camping by ourselves, we like to tent camp. So I have a tent, I have all the gear to go inside the tent. I have originally we had air mattresses, eventually we upgraded to small cots. But basically, you're in a tent, nothing between you, rain, lightning, and bears other than a thin sheet of tent vinyl. And if it gets cold, you're cold. If it gets hot, you're hot, right? That's it. But it's still fun. And the great thing about that is that you're right. Most campsites, the tent sites, are right on the water or right on the great view because you can put them right against the edge because you don't need a lot of facilities to support camps. So that's how you normally camp. Now, also, though, recently, over the past few years, and I don't camp like every single weekend, but typically I'll go 2 or 3 times a summer, right? And but recently, over the past few years, my brother's family, I was able to lure them camping with us. Now, I felt they weren't quite ready for tent camping, so the way I lured them was cabin camping. And with cabin camping, what we did was you can rent these little cabins at the campgrounds. They're more expensive than the sites, but they're still much cheaper than a hotel room. A couple $100 for a 3-day weekend as opposed to, hundreds of bucks a night at a hotel. But it's still pretty. What the nice thing about cabins is there's 4 solid walls, there's a roof. Now, keep in mind, these aren't like cabins with bathrooms or multiple rooms or anything like that. There's nothing like that. It's a single-room cabin, a couple windows, a couple bunk beds, and a couple nightstands. There's no real table you could game on. There's a very small table, so you could, be a very tiny little thing. But there's not really any room. You don't really live in the cabin or spend time in the cabin because really the only thing there's room in the cabin for is to store a few things and beds, right? So it's It's a step up from a tent because you've got four walls, and if the wind gets really bad and the rain gets really bad, it's not a problem. Also, typically in some of these cabins, they throw in there, a little space heater, so if it gets super cold, you can stay warm. So my family, if we're going super early in the season or super late in the season, sometimes we'll grab a cabin, or if we're going with my brother's family, we'll grab a couple cabins and do it that way, because they don't have the tent supplies and everything else. The other nice thing I like about cabins is, when I tent camp, generally I have all my kit in my car, in my garage, ready to go. I have a giant tub with all my gear, all my cooking stuff and everything. I have all the tent stuff in all one spot, like the camping chairs and everything ready to go. And so what we normally do in the summertime, if the weather looks good, the weekend's looking great, we throw all the crap in the car and go. The problem, though, is if you're trying to camp on a holiday weekend like Memorial Day or 4th of July or Labor Day, sites book up quick, so you book those way in advance. And the risk there is you don't know what the weather's going to be like when you're booking it. And so cabins are a little safer if you don't want to be stuck in the gale force wind in a tent. So those are all the reasons I choose the two of those things. But I wanted to give you the context for all that because it helps you understand the situation you're in when you're trying to game while camping. So the thing to know about gaming while camping is you're really going to play on, unless you've got your own portable tables, which I don't. So some people have fold-out, card tables or anything like that. I like to try to be as lean as I can when I camp. The coolest thing about tent camping is you can fit everything in your car. You're not towing a giant trailer. You're not driving this massive RV. You can deploy it all at the campsite. They have a nice little car you can drive around and see the sights with, whatever near your campground. So I like to travel very light, so I don't want to have card tables and everything else. But there are a few things you need to make this work out. So the first thing to remember is you're going to probably be playing games on a picnic table. So most campsites have some form of table sitting there. Usually it's a well-weathered picnic table sitting there, which is big enough for most games. You're not going to put a table hog on there, one of those giant games that's going to need a 4x6 table. You're not going to be throwing down miniature games on that thing unless you brought some extra ways to expand it. But it's a good enough sized table for most board games. But the first problem you got to face is, as I mentioned, this is a well-weathered table. If you're just pulling into the campground for the day and it rained hard the night before, this thing's going to be soaking wet. It could have moss growing on it. It could have dirt on it. It could have bird poop all over it. So you're not really going to want to throw your game directly on the picnic table. So the first thing is you're going to need to bring something for a table cover, either a cheesy tablecloth, which is sometimes what I'll do. I actually have, because I'm also a miniature gamer, I have lots and lots of neoprene mats. And usually I use them for miniature wargaming. A couple of my neoprene mats over the years, I just don't like the surface, or I didn't like the pattern on it, or whatever. So I use those for my board game mats, and I flip them over and use the backside. The nice thing about neoprene to remember is neoprene is literally what they use to make wetsuits out of, which means they repel water, they don't stain easily. They are the perfect thing to throw on top of a picnic table to sort of even out the unevenness, because a lot of the wood's going to warp, it's not going to be perfectly flat, and cover up all the goo. And all you got to do is wipe it down with the damn cloth when you're done, store it, and you're great. So a neoprene mat's great. They roll up really tight. If you don't have a neoprene mat, a simple picnic table cover will also do just fine. So now you're ready to play. But there are 4 other elements you have to beat for the consideration, for the challenges, if you will, to gaming at a picnic table and out under the stars. The first rule is, the first thing you have to deal with is rain. You have to deal with wind. You have to deal with insects, and you have to deal with, that's really it, rain, wind, and insects. So the first thing you want to have to do with rain is you're going to need some kind of cover or canopy. You can get away without this, which is totally fine. But the toughest thing about camping is when it does rain, there's not a lot you can do. So isn't it great if you can actually sit down and play a board game while the rain's going on, and you wait for the rain to clear, and then you go out and go up for a hike or whatever. So the first problem is, how the heck do you do all of that when it's going to rain on your board game because you're playing at a picnic table outside? Well, the answer is a canopy, and you can get canopies for relatively cheap. You can find 10 by 10 foot canopies, which easily cover a picnic table and chairs, at places like Walmart, Dick's Sporting Goods, any place where camping supplies are sold and outdoor equipment is sold, fishing and hunting equipment is sold. And you can find affordable ones, as I mentioned, for about between $40 and $50, usually about closer to $40 and $50. I would spend a little bit on this so yours doesn't fall apart, because the cheaper ones you get what you pay for. But here's where the second element comes in. So the second problem you have to deal with when camping is insects. Now, I have a pretty high tolerance for bugs. If a fly flies by me, or even if a bee lands on the table, I don't freak out, jump up, or anything like that. I just let it go. If it lands on my arm, I brush it away. So bugs, to me, I have a pretty high tolerance. I could get away without a bug net. Not a big deal. However, if you are traveling with folks who are a little more squeamish around bugs, like my daughters or my wife, or you're traveling with folks who don't camp very often, like my brother's family, letting bugs fly around your table is going to distract them from the game. So they're going to be swatting the bugs, freaking out, finding off mosquitoes, and where the bugs do get annoying, even for me, is if it's late in the evening and you happen to have a site that's relatively near a lot of water, so you have a lot of mosquitoes, and the sun goes down, and all of a sudden you're fending off mosquitoes all night, you're trying to play your game. That's hard. Well, that's the fourth element, light. Come back to that in a minute. So a lot of the canopies have attachable screens to them, which is a great addition as well. And again, both these things collapse down into a reasonably small form factor that can still fit in your trunk. So I like these canopy ideas. Now, again, if you're trying to save a little money, you can buy the canopy for $30 or $40 or whatever. You can buy the attachable screen. Some of them come with them, or you can buy the attachable screen for another $10 or $15. So you're still getting out for less than the price of a board game. You've now built a portable gaming area, right, with this canopy thing. Now, I will say this. I've just recently upgraded my canopy situation. So originally I had a very affordable, like $30 canopy that was on sale at Dick's at the end of the season. And then you get the attachable screen that goes around it. And I was using that for years, and it worked reasonably well. But the challenge with this screen situation is when it attaches, it doesn't really seal very well at the top. So most bugs stay out, but over time, a few small ones get in, especially at night when you have your camp light on, a lot of bugs will find their way in. So the ideal scenario is a canopy with an attached screen that's part of the whole pop-up situation, right? So it's not like a separate thing you attach, but it's built right in. It's almost like a tent, but besides, instead of being, transparent or translucent tent material, it's actually screen, like mesh. Now, these are available. Coleman makes a great one I just got on Amazon for $99. And what's nice about these new ones is they use the newer tent pop-up technology. So for those of you who are tent campers, older tents, you would assemble the poles, you'd slide the poles through the little loop, you then bend the poles, and the tent sort of pops up. And you can still get a tent up pretty quickly and easily. But newer tents now, the vinyl is attached right to the poles, and the poles accordion out in such a way that basically it's like you push a couple buttons, the whole tent just pops up, and then you collapse the whole thing down. It's kind of like a fancy giant umbrella situation. They now have canopies that use the same sort of technique. So now the canopy just unfolds, pops up, the netting's already on it, you don't have to attach it, and because it's seamlessly all attached, there's no seam. The only seam you have is between the bottom of the canopy and the ground, which isn't too bad. You can take all that down. So just got one of those, loving it, greatly handles the bug situation. The other nice thing about a canopy is it gives you typically a little hook in the middle of the center, which allows you to hang a light from it, which is the second challenge you have when camping outdoors after rain, which I forgot to mention the first time with my 3, it's actually 4. So the second one is light. So now we've dealt with rain, we've got a canopy. We've dealt with bugs, we've got netting. And now we need to deal with lighting. There's a bunch of options for lighting, obviously. Most folks can get away with a battery-powered light. The light I like to use the most is actually a Ryobi light that I also use for painting. The nice thing about that is it's got these giant rechargeable batteries that go for like 4 or 5 hours of charge, and then I can recharge them either at the outlet. Most campsites have a little power outlet, or I can recharge them in my car, or I can recharge them if I have the cabin doesn't allow for it to do it, I can recharge it there as well. If I have 2 batteries, which I do because I have the whole Ryobi tool system, I can flip them out, pretty much have endless lighting at the campsite. Some people also use Coleman lanterns powered by kerosene. There's a whole variety of outdoor lighting. The point here is don't forget a light. Otherwise, your gaming ends when the sun goes down, and where's the fun in that? Now, again, there are some great games you can play around the campfire. I'm really talking about how do you set up a table situation so you can play the majority of board games that you probably really want to play if you're a hardcore gamer. Excuse me. So, hope this recording is coming out okay. I am driving along in the car now, barreling along at about 70 miles an hour. Again, both my eyes looking straight down the street. I have a little tickle in my throat, didn't buy a drink, so note to self, have drinks for next time. But hopefully the audio is pretty good. I'm really anxious to see how the car microphone works for this, and then we'll see how this goes later. So, We solved now 3 of the primary gaming outdoor problems. We've got a roof over our head, so we can handle light to middling rain. Now, if the rain gets horizontal on you and the wind's really bad, this isn't going to work. You're going to have to either go inside the cabin or whatever. But typically, that's not really what you get. Normally what you get is like a light drizzle, and that's the worst. Everything goes fine, you set up your game, and you get a light drizzle, and you didn't put your canopy up, and now you're really upset because your great board game's getting water all over the board. So the light canopy prevents the sun shower or anything else from messing you up. Second, we've got a screen, so 90% of the bugs won't be a problem. Third, we've got a nice light there so we can play the game in the morning or late at night, right? All right, great. The last problem, and actually this is the worst problem, because quite frankly, if you've got a beautiful sunny day, and it's just, beautiful day out, and there's no bugs, and it's like 1 in the afternoon, and the light's perfect, you don't need a canopy. You can just sit down right there under nature. All you need is that little tablecloth, your day doesn't get dirty, and you can play, and everything's perfect, right? But the fourth problem always shows up, and that is wind. So, wind is the biggest enemy of board gaming. And the problem with it is, yes, of course, heavy winds are the worst, but even light breezes will mess you up and flip over your cards. And if you've got a game with any kind of number of decks of cards going on, and more games nowadays love their cards, right? You get decks of cards everywhere. All of a sudden, they start flipping over. We were playing Disney Villainous, which my family loves, by the way. I'd love to talk more about that a little later. Because this episode, if we're out of time, I'll definitely do a future episode of Villainous. Villainous is a fun game, themed after the Disney villain, but it's completely a card game. I mean, everybody's got a little board. There's cool little, sort of translucent sort of miniatures, but in the end, it's a bunch of decks of cards. So whenever a light breeze would show up, all of us would be like, grab your cards, and we just like put our hands down and try to cover as much as possible, and invariably a card or two would flip over and fly away. We get back, and then it lands on the ground, and the ground's got dew, and now one of your cards is wet, and if you're an anal board gamer like me, you're like, oh God, my card's wet. So combating the wind is a big challenge. But I have solved this problem with flat beads. So if you go to Amazon and you Google flat glass beads, what you will get is vase fillers. And these are, you also see them in some games. They're included in some games of Focus, but the most affordable way to buy it is this vase filler. So these are sort of half beads. So imagine like a glass sphere that's cut in half. So half of it's flat, half of it's a dome. And these are the things you see in the bottom of a vase you jam flowers into. And for like less than $10, like $5 to $8, depending on the site on Amazon, you can get 100 of these things. And I like to get the clear ones because the clear ones don't distract from any of your game content. I know you got 100 of these beads. I throw these beads right in my camping kit. So it's right in there next to my fire starters and my marshmallow roasting sticks and everything else. It's just sitting right there. So no matter which games I bring on the trip, I've always got a bag of these half beads. And so what I do is I go ahead and when I'm setting the game up, I just take one of these beads and put them on each of the piles of cards. And you got 100 of them, so it can also handle the situation where you're trying to cover, like each player's got 3 or 4 decks, or let's say you're playing the game Disney Villainous, and you've got these regions, and each region's got cards above it and cards below it. You got enough beads to pretty much have a bead sitting on everything. And because it's clear, because it's glass, you don't have to worry about, it doesn't distract from your visual. You can even see the art through it, the colors come through it, and it works great. So half bead, way to go. That is how I camp and game. So basically, you got to handle the 4 challenges. You got to have a canopy. You need to have some kind of bug situation. I like the net. You also system like candles, something kind of work, but the netting in the end is the most reliable solution. You want to have a good light. You want to be able to deal with the wind with those beads or something that can weight down your cards, and don't forget the table cover. Now, one other thing is, what are the best games to play while camping? Well, the absolute best games, I would say there's 2 varieties. There's the kind you can play around the campfire, which don't actually require any table surface at all, and solves a lot of these problems. Werewolf is fantastic for this. You deal out the cards, everybody's sitting in the camping chairs, the fire is low, burning low, the stars are out. Werewolf is a fantastic camping game, as is Among the Stars. Now, Among the Stars does require a little bit of a table service, but we played Among the Stars around the campfire by Smirk and Dagger Games, by the way. We played Among the Stars around the campfire on a cooler lid to hold all the stuff, because mostly Among the Stars is a storytelling game. And when you camp, a lot of tradition, especially if you went camping as a kid or to a summer camp, or you went camping with the Boy or Girl Scouts, you'll know that a lot of the things people love to do around the campfire is to tell stories. One of the oldest games around the campfire is some person starts a story and then they just stop suddenly and the next person has to pick up the story. Those are great ways to do it. And games like Among the Stars are basically put a little framework around that, which is great around the campfire. So I always try to bring a few games that are that kind of thing just for around the campfire to give a little structure to that and get a lot of conversation going and make it really fun. The second type of game I like are the games you can play on the picnic table, and that pretty much is any game that isn't super component heavy. Now, we played Russ Legacy on a picnic table, and we had a blast, so you can do games like that. But when you get super component heavy, it's just that many more things to lose. And I also do like games, the Glass Bees works, but I do like games that are actually already pre-weighted. So, Rummy Cup is a great example, or Dominoes, those are some of my favorite games, but they're games like that with heavy components that simply wouldn't move in a light breeze are perfect. We played Azul this weekend and loved it. Azul is a fantastic abstract game with a bunch of sort of heavy plastic tiles that are representing mosaics that you're trying to lay a pattern. And because each player has a relatively heavy cardstock mat, and you're basically putting these plastic tiles on them, the game itself has nothing that can really fly away, and it works great in a light breeze also. So it's great to have some games that are very easy to be wind resistant as well. It's just that much less than you have to worry about. So I like games like Azul. I also like games, card games are also fantastic, because again, if you're holding the cards in your hand and you have one weight on the deck, it's very easy to get going. Diamonds by Stronghold Games is one that my family loves. Of course, all the classic card games, Hearts, Spades, all those we play, of course. My sister-in-law, my brother likes a little nerdier games, and he plays D&D and everything, but my sister-in-law and my wife like a little more abstract games, so I generally try to bring things like Azul and stuff for them. And then I'll try to bring some fun games that also play relatively quickly. But you can get a nice long game in the afternoon also. So I do try to bring a variety, but generally it's mostly leaning towards the party style games and games you play on the campfire, with a couple that will play nicely on the tabletop. So that's what I do for camping and my camping opportunities there. So hopefully that's helpful to you. Let me know if you camped in games and what tricks you come up with. And next time, what I want to do is talk a little bit about the Villainous, because we are loving Villainous as a family. Haven't got Craig to play it yet, so I don't think it would be the kind of thing that Craig and I can review together. But if this whole recording while driving thing works out, I'll probably try to do a few more segments more frequently while I'm commuting, because quite frankly, I'm bored while I'm commuting, so I might as well record some D6G stuff. And just to give a little teaser on Villainous, my kids got it as a gift Easterish, I want to say. So we've got it for a couple months now, and I guess a little over a month. And the premise of the game, you may have seen this, it's in Target, it's everywhere now, so it's around. And there's a core game and one expansion, and the premise of the game is you are playing various Disney villains, and each villain is in their own realm, so they're in their own world. So Jafar's over there in Agrabah dealing with Aladdin and Jasmine and everyone, trying to accomplish his evil plan. Meanwhile, Ursula's over there, under the sea doing her thing with Prince Philip and Ariel and everything. Meanwhile, Maleficent is out there Ariel has Prince Eric. Oh my God, my daughters will kill me. Ariel has Prince Eric. Sleeping Beauty has Prince Philip. She'd be over there. Maleficent dealing with those. So you're playing all the evil villains, and you're basically trying to play a solo game and solve your own problem, be the first villain to complete their evil plot, while other players, though, the player interaction gig is, I could basically take what's called a fate action against you and draw from your own what's called a fate deck, which generates the heroes in your realm to face off against you. So as your opponent, I can activate your heroes to cause you problems, And as my opponent, you can do the same to me. So my villain is always facing the heroes and problems and challenges that are present in the stories, my story. So there's no like crossover story. It's not like Smash Up, but I can make your story harder by activating your heroes and giving them more power, and you can make my story harder. But what's really interesting about the game, it makes it pretty fascinating and fun, is in larger player counts, we played up to 6 and 7 even. In larger player counts, it becomes sort of a screw your neighbor element where you're trying to convince the other players that no, don't mess with me. I'm not about to win. It's my daughter. She's about to win. Have you seen where Jafar is? The guy just got the lamp. He's about to become the evil genie. Someone stop him, right? So, like, there's that whole element, which makes it a lot of fun. And so we're really enjoying it, and I'd love to dive in more detail about why we're liking it, how it's appealing to our nerdy Disney family, and some of the mechanics that I think are pretty interesting. So more about that in a future episode. So there you have it. There's camping while gaming. I hope you guys liked it. Let me know if you like more. Also, real low feedback on the audio quality here. Happy to experiment with this. But if it means I can get more content out more frequently, it's probably something worth experimenting with more. So have a great day, and talk to you again soon.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by emailing us at info@d6generation.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.